I was invited in the year 2016 in Ukraine, and that was a very impressive experience for me. I spent 6 months in Ukraine, met many beautiful people, working on one training for military officers, Ukrainian. And probably that's the main reason why I'm here today. This is the one of the topics which were interesting for me, especially looking for an answer on this question: who wins the battle? You can see the picture of one tank. Then you can see one so-called Rambo guy. And on the third picture, you can see a member of one combat unit. There is no doubt in battle wins well-trained and cohesive combat unit. With all respect to the modern weapon and with respect to the guys who are specially trained, members of special forces and so on. But no one Rambo guy can win in any battle alone. And in this preparation for effective combat unit, combat leader has a key role. According to the army doctrine, there are 4 leadership factors. Please, these factors are leader, the lead, followers, situation, and communication. Without any of this one factor, there is no leadership. You know, you can talk about leadership without leader, without lead. Everything happens in certain situation, and connection is with communication. So I will talk about these 4 factors. First of them is combat leader. Combat leader. Who is successful combat leader? We have 3 relatively different understandings. First of all, is very popular, but completely wrong, that leaders are born. You have to born to be leader. According to the Middle Age, you know, where only members of nobility could be war leaders. Another popular understanding is that there are certain set of leadership dispositions, specific personality traits, abilities. And the third one is that leadership can be learned thanks to certain knowledge, skills, and competencies. There is one very interesting quote from Sir John Moore. You can see it on the slide. Connectedness between leadership dispositions, learned leadership, and so-called born leaders is experience. It's probably one or most important element. And how you can gain combat experience, not on the parades, but on the battlefield. Next slide, please. There are 2 completely opposite when we're talking about soldiers, followers, or lead persons. Completely different and opposite understandings. First understanding is that soldiers are a resource, like a weapon, like a equipment, like ammunition, like a fuel. You know, the other opposite understanding is that soldiers are the most valuable asset, they are precious, their potential. They are the best what the army have, and it is the roots of these two different understandings coming from two different social society views. First of them is this approach that collective in certain society is most important, and the other opposite is that individual with them qualities is most important. If you have leaders with understanding that soldiers are just only a resource, they have these attitudes that soldiers naturally like to be led, they're lazy, they must to be guided and controlled, and so on and so on. If you, as a leader, think that your followers are most precious assets, then you form this other completely different set of attitudes. And of course, attitudes are in the basis of our behavior. What I want to say that leaders with one or other attitudes will behave to those to their followers completely different. Next slide, please. The third factor of leadership is situation. I will make here talk about this one special problem. It is the different situation in the military or the armies in peacetime and in the wartime. There are two different sets of characteristics which are useful for commanders in peace and in war. You can see the differences. As a matter of fact, these are differences between management and leadership. In a first situation, in a peacetime, what do we expect from our commanders? That they have some technical, tactical, on so-called hard skills. In the war situation, on the other side, with respect to the knowledge of techniques and tactics, interpersonal skills. Please, next. Please. It is one very simple quote from US Admiral lady. She said, "You cannot manage men into battle. You manage things. People you have to lead." And the fourth element is communication on the battlefield. I will concentrate only for one very important aspect of battlefield communication. It is giving orders. There are two different possibilities for commanders. First of all, well-known command, forward. And second one is follow me. There's a huge difference between these orders. And you know that it is a question of trust in commander. It is question of authority of commander if he giving orders, follow me. But people are not stupid and they will not follow you in any case. You have to earn trust. They have to trust you. This is probably the most important message I want to share with you. People will trust you if you have certain characteristics. You have to be wise, good, and honest guy. Is it easy? No, it's not. But if they see you as a wise, good, and honest guy, they will follow you. Next, please. Many authors agreed about this thought that trust itself is willingness to take a risk. Not in ordinary situation, in civil situation, in corporations, but especially in the combat situation, especially on the battlefield. You know, if I trust you, I will follow you. So the other name for trust to the commander can be willingness to take risk. Here is well-known, famous General Norman Schwarzkopf. He was head of coalition forces in the Gulf War. This is a sentence that leadership is a potent combination of strategy and character, but character is first, which means that integrity of the commander of all levels of command, lowest level up to the highest level, is one of the most important characteristics of successful leaders. He said that character is even more important for the commander at the highest level than the strategy. This is also a very important aspect of communication on the battlefield, sharing information to the soldiers, to the followers. All possible information you have as a commander, you have to share at least 24 hours before the action. The result is that you, as a commander, increased your confidence in for your soldiers and reduce uncertainty and fear. Probably one very intriguing question: what is combat unit cohesion? As a definition, I use this sentence from one poet. But when we are talking about combat unit cohesion, we can differentiate two aspects of cohesion: vertical and horizontal. What is meaning of combat unit cohesion? According to many researchers, on the battlefield, cohesive units have better performance and less casualties. And after deployment, there is a less PTSD symptoms, less depression, and less suicidal attempts, which means that unit cohesion is a strong resilience factor. And of course, it depends of leader. This is one relatively new concept of leadership, so-called adaptive or real leadership. You can see characteristics of adaptive leadership. What is the main idea? That the leadership on the battlefield is pretty much the same like the creative problem solving. Because of complexity of the war, because of complexity of modern war, combat situations, what do we expect from leaders? To be open, to communicate with his soldiers, and to brainstorm in those very difficult situations, to make decisions at the end, but to consultate with many of soldiers, followers, and to find the better solution in any situation. And final slide, please. This is one thinking of our Croatian general. He was chief of general staff during the war period, as you can see, our famous General Janko Bobetko. You can see his thinking. You can see real adaptive leadership in practice. And that's all what I wanted to share with you this evening. Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Zoran, for delivering such a beautiful overview of leadership. And on a side note, I like the way that you were the leader and Irina was led by your instructions very, very carefully. And Irina did to her best intent every time you said forward, let's do this together. So
very good soldiers, yes.
right. No, I would like to open the discussion, please. And
Thanks for the opportunity, Eric. I think my question for Zoran, and I really appreciate the thoughtful presentation. I think my question is, could you just speak a little bit on what you've observed or what you've studied in terms of the impact of leadership and leadership behaviors on stress reactions in the troops that they lead?
great question, Kurt. Thanks.
Yes. What I can tell you about it, that when you have a good leadership and effective unit cohesion, there is a less problems with the stress, with the acute stress reactions on the battlefield, and you can better to overcome these problems after the battlefield situation. That's my experience.
Well, if I may add to that, that's good for maybe a little bit of a discussion. Typically, like we're talking to a group of people who are mental health professionals, 4 soldiers who've been more than 2 years, maybe more, even more than that, into the war, and typically are engaged in the trenches. And we often have discussions about operational readiness and operational sustainability. Right? When you sometimes see this, what we typically would call moral erosion, belief in the mission, are we able to win the war, as you said in the first couple of slides, right? How does a leader contribute to the, let's say, the unit cohesion and the prevention of moral erosion to sustain the belief in the mission for a good cause, despite the many challenges and the many losses that are there? Could you speak to that as well?
Yeah, I can only to remind you to certain old studies about this issue, and they are from the Second World War and after the Second World War established. At the end of the day, you are, as soldiers, you are fighting for your comrades, for your unit members. No, you will not leave them because you are so close connected to them, and this is a unit cohesion strength, you know, and weakness, of course. Even if you don't believe in victory, even in that situation, you will continue to fight because you are loyal and you have trust to your commander, to your friends, soldiers in this unit. That's interesting. That's very interesting thing.
Yeah, thank you. If I may engage, yes, Irina, or others in the audience, please raise your hand or or ask a question. This is a great momentum. The topic is really at your fingertips and really important for today's situation. Vladimir, go ahead.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Well, firstly, it's
Where are you based, Vladimir? Please say where you're based. That we know.
I'm from the 12th Brigade of the National Guard of Ukraine from Azov. Firstly, thank you to Mr. Komar for actually placing some of the most famous people from our brigade on your first slide. Related, Ukraine was facing this necessity to have the leaders kind of all of a sudden, because the majority of the nation, they never expected that the country would be brutally invaded. So you needed to kind of get the leaders very soon, the next moment. From your past, from how it was in Croatia, this kind of intrusion was to Slovenia and to Croatia. Slovenia managed to kind of cancel everything out in a few days, but for Croatia, it was for a few years. So Croatia would need to have leaders also. From your experience of being in Ukraine, was it similar to your home country, or was it a totally different story? Thank you so much.
Thank you for this question. It was pretty much similar. It was almost the same situation, because we didn't have a Croatian army at the beginning of the war at all. We didn't have a Croatian army. Former Yugoslav army collapsed. Even more, we were in a situation to fight against the Yugoslav army. So we were in a position to quickly establish armed forces from the volunteers. And I was a volunteer. I wasn't a professional soldier at the beginning of the war, but many of us joined the army and learned quickly technical and tactical aspects of war, but with the clear understanding that we have to participate, that we have to fight, that we have to defend our land. So in some way, it was a good thing, because we were not in a position to follow traditional military structures, and our commanders, many of our generals at the beginning of the war were soldiers. I was a soldier at the beginning of the war, and I earned my military rank during the war period. So, and in this way, it was a very similar situation like in Ukraine was. Yes. Thank you for that question.
Thank you, Zoran. I think what you're alluding to, Volodymyr, is that you see a high turnover, right? That people become leaders very quickly in their careers because there's a necessity on leaders when there's such a turnover. Okay, that second question, Oleksiy, please go ahead. If you wanted to open up your video as well, then we can see you and then we can hear you.
I'm trying.
Yes,
Hi,
please.
where
Where are you based? Where are you based, Oleksiy? Or by proxy, don't give details.
Thanks. I'm already a civil person today. I'm no longer militarist today, but I used to be a soldier. I used to be Ukrainian soldier from the beginning of 22 year. So today I am a civil person, but I'm teaching another people to get skilled with some military military methods, or okay, in general, in common sense, okay, without any details. Okay, my question is the follow. I would like to ask about methods and improvement or development to be a leader in the military sphere, because I would say the common rules or atmosphere we are really love in is all people are different, and probably kind of leader is really dependent on different background, different styles of behavior, or every maybe psychological character, type of character, some person, and different background, different previous experience, and different kind of psychological kind. So depending on those points, could we resolve some recommendation and dependencies in context of my words?
Okay, thank you. Zoran, please.
Yes, it's a very important and very difficult question to answer, you know.
That's true. I agree.
I don't have an instruction and some easy answer to this question, but I can tell you. Let's start. I think that one of the easiest way to find a leader in a group of soldiers is to leave them together. Let's say squad or platoon, one platoon, 10 to 30 men, to live together and to choose between himself. They say, you will be our leader. You know, they will recognize if the choice is right, if the choice is proper, those that man will say, no, I don't want to be, I don't want, and that's the very good sign that he will be a good leader. You know, I don't know if I satisfied your curiosity, but I try to be honest. You know, people will recognize who is able and capable to lead them. People will recognize that. And if you will be in the combat situation, that probably will be the best choice.
Дякую.
No, Volodymyr
Thank
can
you, Zoran.
help me. Volodymyr, what are your experience about this?
There's a return question to you, Vladimir. You started with the first question, please.
Well, I guess from the experience of our brigade, especially when it comes to the battle, I mean the latest battle, the latest siege of Mariupol, there was a situation when there was a garrison in the city, but it ended up to be that every single unit, even the smallest one, needed to have a person, even a soldier from Azov, to be capable of rebuffing the offense. And that's the reality. That's, I mean, there are lots of books will be written about this, but that's how it is. So it is possible in real life that that there is a possibility that that a soldier can lead a much bigger unit for a totally different type of the military when it comes to a necessity to counter the overwhelming offense, which, I mean, in a few days it became siege, and then it ended up to be the Azov style battle. So, and the commander of the entire garrison, I mean, the commander of Azov became the commander of of a much larger unit because somebody needed to step up.
It is a great honor for me to invite Mr. Vladyslav Klochkov, so Major General, the commander of the Directorate of the Psychological and Moral Support of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. In that case, let's begin. It's a pleasure to be present at this event. I see many familiar faces. I might somewhat repeat myself because I've already delivered this talk to many of those who are present here with us today. There might be some things that I repeat, but it would give us a deeper understanding of the current processes. The processes that we're witnessing right now, and we're in the middle of fighting for independence, and it's a struggle against a very powerful aggressor army. Presently, I'm in the area of combat missions. Yesterday, I was in Zaporizhia region. Today, I'm in Donetsk region. I talked to the commanders. And as a former commander myself, I am aware that there are certain processes that take place at the combat line, and I arrive at the main conclusion as I speak. People are, first and foremost, is that unit that leads us to battle. One single individual, one single person has an impact on the effectiveness of combat missions, the effectiveness of their weapon use, military equipment use, and therefore their morale. And as I visited the area of Avdiivka today, I can tell you that a lot depends on how things are organized, depends on management, depends on support. This all empowers putting together effective units who will effectively attain goals. And I echo the first speaker that nowadays it's crucial that the units are led, that beginning from section to platoon to battalion to brigade, all of those should be led by good leaders. We have a problem today on the tactical level due to high casualty levels at the beginning of the aggressions. So we struggle with preparing effective and meaningful commanders of the lower ranks. We do not have time because we need to hold the line, and this is how we put together new units. We also are trying to draw up some reserves. Therefore, we need to bear in mind of the huge advantage that the Russian army holds over us in terms of their resources, in terms of the resources of their personnel. Regardless of the casualties that they sustain, they still can bring new people to the units, and they can hold military actions and hostilities almost across the entire contact line. I am the head of a structure today that is tasked with mainly working with the personnel, supporting the army personnel. And this work is of crucial importance. Yes, there are certain disadvantages. There's also a certain shortage of qualified personnel and staff that needs to perform these tasks. But nevertheless, my service functions. The necessary decisions are taken, and certain elements of the systems will be transformed. But today we perform our functions that are outlined in the regulatory acts, and the key task is to support the army personnel. We also have the aim to inform the commander-in-chief on the morale of the troops, on the readiness of the troops to perform certain missions. On the fact, we also inform about the positive and negative factors that might influence and impact the troops. And we also bring the attention to the necessary decisions that need to be taken concerning the armed forces. Sometimes these decisions need to be taken by the Ministry of Defense. We have a kind of a legacy system, but today we can outline main dimensions of what we do. What we can do, we can provide some moral support, psychological support, social support. Spiritual support is a different matter, and same common, and this is not something that is covered by our directorate. Yeah, so these tasks are performed by another authority in the main directorate. They also work with the psychological domain. Probably it will become a separate domain, and internal communications probably will deal with strategic communication in the future and social support of the armed forces, because social support, including the financial support, it's managed by the national level, by the Ministry of Defense. So that was the organizational structure. The next slide. The Ministry of Defense outlines the policy. The armed forces perform these tasks. There's a strategic level with the general staff, there's the operative level with the operational command, there's also tactical level, the brigades, the battalions, the companies. Next slide. So, what are the capabilities to implement these tasks? And what are the sources of certain growth? On a tactical level, the combat stress control group were deployed, the support groups and recovery groups. We have certain shortage of staff, but we realized that initially we had only 250 psychologists in-house. And with the armed forces of 1 million servicemen, we currently have 2,000 psychologists, and we are planning to increase that figure because the current staff simply is not capable of delivering those tasks. We are looking at the opportunity to mobilize more psychologists, or we also have the research branch, and they're looking at the research, and we also have the centers on the command, and they have an impact on the situation, on increasing and building capabilities in the field of psychological support. Next slide. So what is the basis? The basis is to support the morale. As the National Guard representative mentioned, Azov Brigade is demonstrating its effectiveness today. The feat of Mariupol is renowned, and yesterday and today they managed to liberate the 3rd assault brigade, that is. So the morale of the troop is the foundation. And what is impacted by morale are the moral readiness, psychological readiness, and social support, because we need to be aware that an armed forces member must be ready to perform the task, and yet he must be certain that there's a good safety net for his family. And there's also the spiritual support. The military chaplains are always there, standing shoulder to shoulder with psychologists. They're basically performing the same tasks to prepare the servicemen spiritually and morally to perform the duties, and also the willingness for self-sacrifice is hard work. And we're also seeing some shortage of staff here.
Це залежить від переважна більшість у нас посад Православної церкви України, тому
Well, most of the positions are taken by the Orthodox chaplains, so it's their task essentially to fill in the positions of the chaplains. In terms of moral support, the key questions are first and foremost information. The information about combat missions, informing the commanders, and debriefing and analysis, because we must get to the level when we minimize the enemy's psyops. So the national and patriotic upbringing, the rituals which motivate for the missions are the key. On psychological direction, it starts with what's called psychological diagnostics. So the recruitment centers, they run the psychological selection of the service persons, and this is the key task because it depends because the quality of personnel depends on this a lot. So the psychological preparation, it goes in the initial training centers. And the individual psychological training is aimed to ensure that every new recruited service person has taken the course of psychological first aid and tactical combat medicine. And there's also collective psychological preparation, which is about modeling combat activities so that the service persons can adapt to the environment where they will operate, especially considering that people who are being mobilized fast, they not have prolonged training. This is really important. The support and follow-up. It's done by groups which operate in every military unit. It's done by 2 groups of 5, so overall there are 10 people allocated for that. We plan an additional group per battalion, so that there would be 3 groups per battalion, and all would be under the head of psychological service in every military unit. And then the additional capacity can be increased through the centers from the general structure. So the system of psychological support, well, the first psychological aid is provided within the unit when there is some psychological instability and when the soldiers cannot perform the task, they are evacuated to the brigade psychological support point, where there are trained psychologists from the combat stress control unit, and they are triaged there. If necessary, the medication and psychiatrist counseling is provided, and then the soldier is evacuated to the corresponding facility. Now, the peer-to-peer course is implemented following the Israeli experience, because we cannot train everyone, but at least junior commanders and sergeants. They are being trained so that later it would be hopefully scaled up down to every service person. And as I said, another issue is taking the units for the replenishment and reintegration. Previously, after 2014, there was some period for the unit to be on the front line, and then they would come back for recovery. Now, unfortunately, some units have to stay at the front line for a prolonged time, for over 2 years. They did not have the possibility to withdraw for recovery. That's why there was this decision to create these centers, the recovery centers. And there will be a dedicated center on the recovery and reintegration of those who were in captivity as prisoners of war. And another task which we are now doing jointly with the Security Service of Ukraine and the intelligence unit, this is the reintegration of those who were in captivity in prisoners of war. There are cycles of psychological recovery, debriefings, and now we also provide the option, so people might continue the service if they want, or if they no longer want to serve, they are free to leave the service. So for returned prisoners of war, I understand that it's a sensitive situation and they would need additional support sometimes throughout all their life. The social support. As I said, it's divided into social welfare and social support. So the Ministry of Defense is paying social welfare, and social support is done by the armed forces. So this also really affects the morale, the way the service persons are supported, the way the families are supported, gender issues, so quite a lot of work is now put on the territorial recruitment centers. These are the places where the service starts and where the service finishes. There's another expensive but effective experience present in the National Guard and in the 3rd Assault Brigade. They have a support service within the structure of the unit, especially for the wounded. They have their own capabilities to support the service person until the recovery. Next slide. Spiritual support. As I said, the chaplains are doing this. It's subordinate to the commander-in-chief, but they implement their functions in the general system. And now we try also to delegate certain functions and tasks onto certain structures, which in these 2 years were deployed, and we want to avoid the duplication of functions. So we want to make sure it's more in line with NATO standards. So some tasks will be delegated to other structures, such as the Central Directorate for Psychological Support, and the main Directorate for HR, and the Strategic Communications Directorate. So military chaplain service is still there as a separate service, as the law says. This is it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Vladislav, for finding the opportunity and finding time to join this meeting today, despite the circumstances. I see that there's lots of activity in the chat box. I see the hands raised, and I think we might stay a little bit longer. Usually we plan 75 minutes, but I think we can stay a little bit longer. Eric, do you mind?
Can we go to the, yeah, absolutely. This is a very important, very important topic. But can we give the first question to the previous speaker, Zoran, if you wanted to comment on what you've heard or reflect? Maybe we can give you the word first, and then we go to the attendees. But since you are a speaker here, we'd like to allow you to open the floor. Zoran, would you be willing to open the floor?
Yes,
by
yes,
asking
I'm
the first?
here. I'm very happy that I can see General Klochkov again, and to say greetings to General and to express my deepest sympathies for all men and women fighting as a members of Ukrainian defense forces. I'm pretty much familiar with this structure that General presented to us, and I can say that this structure of moral and psychological service in Ukrainian army is pretty much the same as we had in Croatian army during the war period. Our service name was Informational and Psychological Service, with informative, psychological, cultural, and spiritual components, including social support for wounded person and families with who members were killed. It was a logical structure, and that's my main impression.
Thank you, Zoran. Then we go, Irina, we go to the hands. The people have raised the hands.
Yes, I had a question on cohesion, on combat cohesion. I was interested. Besides the leader, who else can be responsible? Who can form? Because, well, it does not 100% depend on the leader. So who else could help create the conditions for combat cohesion? This is my question. Besides the leader, who else is forming this combat cohesion?
Yes, thank you, Nadia, for this question. And as a matter of fact, all unit members are responsible for unit cohesion. And it is a natural process. Unit cohesion is not something that starts from the beginning, but when you put people, a group of people to live together, to share good and difficult times together for some time, let's say for 2 or 3 months, unit cohesion will be established. And of course, that is the role of unit commander is very important, but all members contributing in this process. Yes. And I saw the question, one question in chat about what's happened when unit commander is killed. You have to find deputy. In the cohesive unit, you have to find the unit will find deputy very quickly. I hope that I satisfied your curiosity with this answer.
Okay, thank you. Let's go around the table, unless Vladislav wants to comment on this one as well. Otherwise, we go to we have many hands, so a very engaging discussion. If then we go back to you, Oleg Dombrovsky. Please open your mic and ask the first question, or the second, where we are now.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Eric, for the opportunity to ask the question. First of all, I would like to say thanks for the organization of this event. For me, it's important when the military can talk to the civilians. And, well, I mean, in Ukrainian society, everyone is engaged in the defense, but still, it's important sometimes to discuss the peculiarities. I had a question to Zoran. If you look at the current trends in Croatia, have there been any changes in the training of leaders? If you compare the 1990s, and the current situation, what has changed? What are the trends? What would be the recommendations for Ukraine? And secondly, I would like to say thanks to Vladislav for this brave step when he raised the topic of psychological support for discussion. I've seen some critical comments in the chat, and yeah, some of them look like the attempts to riot, because it might be natural that we want to have things faster, to have the situation improved as fast as possible. But and yes, it's possible that there are issues, there are problems in the organization of the service. But yeah, we keep improving. We have lessons learned, and this is the only way we can improve and fight the enemy.
Just one question. Where are you? What's your role, Oleg, in the situation where you're calling from, or where are you calling from, Oleg?
Я проходжу службу в силах територіальної оборони.
I serve in the Territorial Defense Force, and about 6 months ago, I headed one of the centers for moral and psychological support, and there I was directly providing psychological support for the troops from combat areas.
All right, thank you.
And some of the ideas shared by Zoran, well, essentially it's what we did at the front line, so it really looks similar in some aspects.
Okay, so first to Zoran and then to the General Vladislav. Yes, Zoran.
Yes, thank you, Oleg. If I understand your question, you asked me about to compare the situation in the Croatian army today compared with the war period. These are two completely different armies now, but you have to know that I leave Croatian army almost 20 years ago. So I'm not an active duty for a long period of time. But at that time, we had about 150 to 200,000 soldiers, and minority of them were professionals.
І переважно
I think not more than 15,000. Now we have fully professional army with approximately 15,000 professional soldiers, and the situation is completely different. I'm a little bit worried about the situation in Croatian army because we now, I think that the situation is like we never have an war threats and war again. No, that we finished our story and that's it. I'm a little bit afraid because of it, because we don't have any education now for young person, military education. Now is the discussion about the necessity of establish some kind of 3 months education for young people, and that's it. And in the military psychology service also is deconstruction after the war period. So this is the current situation now in Croatian army.
Okay, thank you. Vladislav, any comments on your side that you'd like to give in comparison or trends?
Ми можемо порівняти,
Well, what we can compare is the following.
як і хорватська
Like
армія,
the Croatian army, our army, we have 250,000 professional troops, and I always emphasize it. 250,000, they were properly trained, they signed contracts, and they performed the tasks at the initial stage. And then the armed forces were expanded, amounting to almost 1 million troops. Civilians started to serve, teachers, engineers, and a question arose. In this limited amount of time, how can you organize a mobilized army and turn it into a professional army, so to say? Well, I think it is mostly contingent on the commander, on the leader, on every level, because the leaders organize combat action, they're planning combat action, and support is also a major factor. For example, if there's an advantage in the amount of artillery fire or an advantage in the amount of personnel, this dispirits the troops naturally, does not help the morale. And if the leader, the commander, is lost, and usually at the beginning of the battle, the commander managing the unit is a primary target. So the succession of duties is of primary importance, so that every sergeant and every private is duly trained. Much to my chagrin, there are ample examples nowadays where the commanding officer of the unit who had been mobilized would have weaker leadership qualities compared to a private. But as a civilian, that private used to be a civil leader, and he knows how to motivate people. And basically, these privates would enjoy more authority, former civilians. Therefore, what needs to be enhanced at the level of the training are the leadership skills, because it all boils down to training. Training is key. And unfortunately, we have seen cases of misdeployment of certain units. For example, territorial defense force units were wrongly deployed. They were used as regular troops, which they are not. But, you know, we were so outnumbered, so we had to do that as a last resort. Therefore, putting together sergeants as leaders, and the basis for that should be growing leadership skills in them. So the training centers that provide the necessary training need to be a place where these leaders are selected. Also, professional capabilities should be taken into account when different positions are appointed. If these conditions are met, the unit resilience would soar. Thank you, Vladislav. I can see that we have 4 hands raised and also a lively discussion in the chat box. Colleagues have exchanges of comments and questions. Yevhen Mariniuk, time for your questions. Please be mindful of the time.
Yeah, I'll try to.
Yes, I have a question to Vladislav.
Yes, go ahead.
Я почув ваші доповіді про те,
So
що
Vladislav, in your report, I heard that the need is approximately 2,000 psychologists, that is qualified psychologists. So, for example, I am a qualified psychologist. I can certainly do some of the interventions that you mentioned in your speech. But the requirements are for the psychologist to be an officer. I have not served in the armed forces. Will you change the legislation to rectify the situation or not? Yevhen, thank you for your question. Look, when the aggression began, as I said, the number of military psychologist staff was approximately up to 500 people. There was just one position at the level of battalion. A battalion amounted to 350 to 500 or 450 troops. We think that at the times of war, at least 300 soldiers per one psychologist, that should be the ratio. Only the Military Institute of Taras Shevchenko University has the right to train and they have the master's level education. They have the legal right to work in the units. Today, to stabilize the situation, and we decided to deploy combat stress control groups. This is something that works in the US, and we think it's a more effective model. So technically, we've dismissed former officials, where you would have one psychologist per battalion, and we replaced them with two groups, so these people could replace each other. It's a capability that the brigade commander has at hand. It's available to them, so they could stabilize the right flank battalion and then the left flank battalion. And they also established a psychology support center with this selection, for example, where the traumatized soldier comes from the front line, where the evaluation and assessment is carried out, whether a person needs short-term recovery or the so-called deep recovery, or sometimes some medication needs to be prescribed. The number of the armed forces has expanded, the number of units has grown. These groups were deployed, and the number of staff today, so I mean all the military psychologists to cover all the armed forces, are now amounting to 2,000. And a decision has been taken to expand the system even more. Additional groups would be deployed in every battalion. You would have 3 more people per battalion, so you would have even more staff. And it's a problem. How are we trying to bridge this gap? One source would be mobilized individuals. Conscription officers provide 2 months training in this military institute, and we are engaged with the academia from the Taras Shevchenko University. Time is of the essence. We understand that this time frame is way too short to ensure the quality, but when you have an unqualified psychologist, he might deal more damage than do more damage than good. So it's a big problem. The problem of the staff shortage and the problem of lack of qualification is very much in place today. The Cabinet of Ministers knows about this problem, and the Ministry of Defense is putting together a separate agency for communicating with the presidential administration and the Cabinet of Ministers. So it's a known problem, and we're looking for ways to address it.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. I can only thank you for the fascinating speeches. Most of us can relate to that. The lives of the troops are extremely precious to us because they are our victory. They are our hope for the future of Ukraine. Unfortunately, there are so few of us. But in the interest of time, I cannot respond as an instructor of the military leadership. I just would like to thank you for these engaging talks. Sana with us, we can consider about the second episode of this webinar, for example, because it definitely has a meaning. Yevhen Balabushka, over to you.
Yeah, please.
Hello, Irina. I'm serving in the military institute that was mentioned by the Major General. I have a question to Zoran. First, I'm excited to see you. Thank you for the course that you did with our armed forces, with the military psychologists back in 2016. We're still using the skills. But I have a question about leadership, a quick question. As we're short of time, in Croatia, a certain leadership model was deployed. What models were you using were the models coming from other countries, or you had to develop your own model in Croatia? Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, unmute, Zoran, please.
Yes. Hello to my dear friend, Zhenya. I know them from the period when I was in Ukraine, and we are very good friends now. I didn't understand your question, Evgeny, properly. No, we didn't have any particular model for leadership. We established our own model based on experience. One very important question, very important aspect of successful military leadership is combat experience. Probably the most important. It's combat experience. And my suggestion to Ukrainian friends is that every member of Ukrainian army have to be spend some time on the front line. It's a unique experience, and it will be very, very useful when you come back to any other position in the army. You will understand what's happening there. You will be a better specialist when we are talking about military psychology or any other service.
Yeah, thank you so much, Vladislav. Before I give it to you, Irina, to close this session, wonderful discussion in the late hours. I'm really grateful that you have been able to stay on for so long. It's a very active chat group. We haven't seen that activity in the chat group for a long time. This speaks really to the heart of the matter. This is about something. I hear that there is an urgency. I heard that we have had excellent speakers that really dived into this topic and have a rich experience. So thank you for this very interesting, fascinating discussion. And I think we will discuss to bring this on again, because I feel that it's urgent, it's needed. And thank you so much, Zoran Komar, for being with us tonight and your excellent points. And Vladyslav Klochkov, thank you for being with us in these difficult situations, and you've been traveling the country, and thank you for giving the insight that you provided to us as a group. And me, as in the Netherlands, we also feel the urgency. We're far away, but we do feel that. And I look forward to continuing this discussion with you in one of the next hot topics in Dark Days. Now, it's been 2 years since we started this, about 2 years. 2 years. I wish we could call this Hot Topics in Bright Days. Not yet. It's still Hot Topics in Dark Days. We have to pursue, and we will. So we will continue, and I see Irina nod. We will continue delivering, hopefully, the best speakers that are interesting for you to learn from and to build unit support. There's also unit support that we give each other. And I think that's very important to pursue. And Irina, you can do this way better in Ukrainian, and please close the evening for tonight if you wish. Thank you.
Так, дякую, колеги. Дійсно.
Yes, thank you, colleagues. Indeed, we have these regular meetings from March 11th to 2022. We first did it twice a month. Now we meet every last Thursday of the month, and we'll have it in March, April, May, as long as it's needed.